Thanks so much, Ken Workington, and welcome to the Sam McKee Memorial Broadcast set on this rainy Saturday evening. Happy International Women's Day. I guess a day late, but we're celebrating it here at the Big M with two full fields of women drivers, and of course, so happy to be joined by Lauren Harmon on the In the Sulky segment. Lauren, welcome back to the Meadowlands.
Thank you, Jess.
We are celebrating International Women's Day here at the Big M, and Lauren is actually a friend of mine from back home in Michigan. Now she's residing in Ohio, working for the stable. We'll get to that a little sooner, but I want to familiarize our audience, Lauren, with who you are and kind of your background. So we're going to bring up a graphic first and foremost called Harmon's History, because you have plenty of family background in harness racing, including your father and your uncle.
Yeah. I've third generation horseman. My dad's dad had horses. He trained horses for quite a while. And then my dad got into training horses as well, and same with my uncle Rob. And then I found myself later on with my stepmom was training horses for us, Krista Harmon. And kind of then from there I was jogging horses and helping out in the barn, and then I found myself here.
So was harness racing always in your, I guess, your foreseeable future? You've been driving for 5 years now, but is this something you always wanted to do growing up?
Yeah, in the beginning I wasn't quite sure. I'd help in the barn and everything, but I still had school, you know. And at the time I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Well, you took a totally different path.
Absolutely.
So speaking of driving for 5 years, we're going to bring in a roll-in from the Delaware County Fair. And if there's one thing anybody wants to do, I feel like, in harness racing, it's not only participate at the Delaware County Fair, but it's win a race. And you actually, like I'd mentioned, work for the stable.ca. You were able to get to the winner's circle with Walk to the Moon. What were you thinking coming down the stretch?
I couldn't believe it. I think I might have had a tear roll down my eye, just because, like you said, everybody wants to participate in Delaware. They want to drive, even if it's a groom, paddocking at Delaware. It's a big deal for a lot of people, and to win a race there, I was on cloud nine.
And the crowd is always so amazing in Delaware.
Yeah.
You can hear them from literally the backstretch. It's
so
fun.
And especially on Jug Day, you can't find an open spot on the fence, and it's insane. It's awesome.
So you were driving at Delaware, in their amateur events. You're also driving at Northfield Park in their amateur events and the Meadows. What's kind of that experience been like?
It gets a lot of experience. Different tracks, different track surfaces, all that, different drivers. I've really enjoyed all of it.
And you've been driving for just 5 short years now. We mentioned earlier just the young age of 23. We'll bring up another graphic. Lauren, by the numbers, you've had a really good year in 2023. That was your career best, earning over $100,000 in lifetime in 23. Lifetime stats, you're 31 for 338. And like I had mentioned, you driving all over, kind of getting the experience. Is that just mainly what you're looking for, is getting more drives and more experience in the bike?
Yeah, I appreciate every opportunity I get. Anthony's been a huge help with a lot of it, and with my dad and my stepmom. But yeah, experience is a lot.
And also, speaking of the stable, we'll go to them in a second, but you actually have trained a few of your own over the course of the last couple of years. What's that been like? Because like I had mentioned, such a young age at 23, you've been driving for 5 years. What has that experience been like? Because you obviously come from a horseman's background, but who do you go to for advice? Do you kind of try things on your own? What do you do there?
Yeah, it's different. I always try to go to my dad first. I've definitely asked Anthony for help, and I've asked Jason McGinnis for help too, who trains the horses for Anthony, and my stepmom Krista. Everybody has a different opinion on certain things.
Yeah. Everybody does something different. Like I had mentioned, or I've said this to multiple people, just because someone does something one way doesn't mean it's the wrong way when somebody else does it. There's so many different opinions that you could have and approach things in a different way. Speaking of your dad, I am going to kind of put you on the spot here. Your first lifetime drive, I believe it was, you were in with your dad?
No,
or your first win?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story real fast?
I was quite nervous. I was driving a horse that I had no idea anything about, and I left out of there with him and got to the front, and I happened to look over, I think just past the half, and I see my dad on the outside, and he never got close to me.
And you ended up winning the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think your dad was able to make it to the winner's circle.
Yeah, he was able to make it there. That was nice.
That was pretty cool. It's really nice when there's a family affair. I believe one day you, Krista, and your dad all won a race in the same day at a fair, right?
I forget what fair it was, but yeah.
That has to be pretty cool. With Riley there as well,
Yeah,
paddocking
she
all
was
the
paddocking
horses.
all of
And there
them.
you go. It's a big a family affair. Another Roland I want to bring up is kind of a family horse called Poof Daddy. Now, this was at Northfield Park in just a regular overnight race back in July, and you put a new lifetime mark on this guy?
Yeah. He had a mark in like 53 and a piece at Running Aces with my dad. And during this time, my dad had a hip replacement. And so he was letting me drive a couple of the easier horses. And with him being a family horse, he was a push-button horse to drive, and we were able to get it done.
And what was it like kind of driving in against, I guess, the A drivers at Northfield?
They're a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
And like I would talk to my dad about it, like, oh, so-and-so's in this race. But from what he said the one night to me, he said, well, maybe they're saying like, oh, Lauren's in this race too.
You never know.
And since then, it's kind of another race,
Yeah.
so to say.
So plenty of success on the driving and the training side, but you actually work for the stable.ca, which is Anthony and Amy McDonald. And Anthony did say in one of his interviews that you're the backbone of the stable. You kind of help see the day-to-day operations. He's moved, I feel like I want to say almost 100 horses to Northfield, and that's kind of like his main base operation. What has it been like working for him and Amy and that whole crew over the last couple of years?
Just like your other day-to-day barn, I don't have to deal with everything, so that helps.
Mm-hmm.
I just take care of a certain number of horses. But it is crazy to go from a small stable working with your parents and working for some other small stables, and then to see 80 horses in the barn day-to-day. It's different.
And on the caretaker side of things, I know this is always one of my favorite parts, but you get a 2-year-old, you break them, and then you kind of see them graduate. There's just no better feeling than watching them graduate to the big stages.
And I never really took care of horses other than babies. Like I always did the aged horses. But working with Anthony, I've started to take care of a couple of the younger horses. And I totally agree with you. It's one of the best feelings ever to watch them.
To watch them grow and
yeah.
succeed and kind of graduate. One more quick thing before I let you go. Tonight you're driving. You've driven here once before, I believe. I think you had a couple of drives on the card. We've tried to get you in the Sulky a few times, but I feel like every time I had that scheduled, it snowed and you weren't able to come here. But what does it mean to you to participate tonight with all other female drivers coming from, different states, even down from Canada, on one of the biggest stages, if not the biggest stage in harness racing?
It's a huge applaud to the Meadowlands for putting on this for these women drivers, and it's a huge shout out to the women drivers that are able to come and participate in this. And I'm really glad I could be here and be a part of this.
Well, we're really glad that you were able to make the trek from Ohio here to the Big M. One more thing, like I had said, you're 23 years old, a young woman in the business, growing up and succeeding in this business. What piece of advice would you have for somebody, that was in your spot 5 years ago that wanted to become a driver?
The biggest thing is to just follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams, work hard, don't be afraid, don't be intimidated. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and best of luck. We're going to take a quick time out, and when we return, Jenna will join me, and we'll talk about some featured action on tonight's card.